Okay, I'd like to call to order the Capital Improvement Committee meeting of April 8th at 10:07 a.m. First thing on our agenda is the stabilization fund. Matt has an appointment that he needs to get to, so I'd like to do this first and move through it. I don't know if anybody's given it any consideration, but again, the idea behind this is to get the fire apparatus on a 5-year schedule. We bought the last one in 2017. If the one that we just voted to put on this year's capital gets approved, those two are 5 years apart. He has two other ones that are going to come up behind it. They're aging trucks, but hopefully he can buy some time out of them and we can get to this point. When we establish this, we may want to keep that in mind. Originally, we talked about putting $100,000 into it. We may want to, just to get the fund up and going, maybe suggest 125 or something like that. We'll get to that point. Jean is checking with whoever she's in town council to find out if it's something that we can do on the special town meeting versus an annual. The sooner we get this in place, the better it'll serve the town, I feel. So that's why I'm constantly asking about this. So I don't know if we can go around the table if you have, and we'll just do it that way. Do you have any comments or anything on or questions on the stabilization?
All for it. Let's get going.
Ellie?
Yeah, I'm for it too, but I do have some questions.
Yep.
I was hoping that when we do a funding from capital, and I'm presuming that if not all the money for that capital event is spent, that it goes back to the general fund somehow, or Jean holds on to it until it's for another capital.
Okay, so once it goes into the stabilization fund, it's going to stay there until it's voted 2/3 votes to take and move it back to the general fund or anywhere else. Just keep this in mind, that the truck that we just put through now is $750,000 estimated cost. The estimated cost on the ladder truck, which will come up within the next 10 years, is currently around 1.2 to 1.3 million. So if we put $500,000 into it and he buys his brush, the forestry tanker truck, and it's $300,000. My suggestion would be to leave that $200,000 in there because it's going to offset further the purchase of the ladder truck. This is a...
Yeah, see, I'm not, I know everybody's in love with you.
It's not, yeah.
Really? But I don't think
I
we
agree,
should
Ken.
make the stabilization fund just solely focused on the fire department. I think it should be a capital stabilization fund, more general that way, unless you...
Yeah, so my own...
So, well, wait, let me
Okay,
finish,
okay.
okay?
Yep.
Because you sidetracked me a couple of times in the just question.
Okay,
So
good.
I'm saying, for instance, the library has set roofing that, and the capital voted, and town meeting voted $75,000 for that, and it's coming in quite a bit less, we think. So the less, or the difference between the amount that was voted at town meeting and what the actual cost is, can that difference go into the stabilization fund and add money that way?
So I would assume that town meeting could vote to do what you're suggesting. If you do, I'm not in love with Ken, I'm already married, so we'll just make that clear.
That wouldn't stop it.
No, well, yeah, in today's world, probably not. So the whole purpose of this is, I am not for any individual department, or I'm for the entire town. So if the library, if the fire department, if community development, if they need, or the town clerk needs storage, if they need something and it's a valid thing, and I think it's important, yes, I will jump behind it and try to help. This is a big problem. We just got faced with, we had $1.1 million to use this year for capital. We actually exceeded that by $160,000 and $48, according to his calculations on his calculator the other day. And the majority of that money was for a fire truck. This problem was here in 2017, now it's here. It's going to come back again, if you looked at our projected capital items. 3 years in a row, he had these trucks because they need to be addressed. And we're trying to come up with a solution that helps the town. Now, if it's something that you, once we cloud it, I shouldn't say you, once we cloud it with funds intended for something else, it defeats the process, because now you're back to justifying who's more important. This is a suggestion to solve a problem that we have. We only address the symptoms every 5 years with this truck, and it becomes a major problem for us from the capital standpoint. So I aggravated the daylights out of Matt and Gene going back and forth. You're probably tired of me asking this question, and finally, I got enough information out of them that I figured out how to address this. That's all the motivation is in that.
You didn't aggravate me, you were a new ally in a conversation.
Oh, okay.
For a while.
Yep. But this is a long-term solution that's going to help us greatly. And I told, and I'll just address the library issue, No, listen.
I'm using that as an example.
Wait a minute.
Any.
Whoa, no.
Whoa, you, buddy. You know,
Okay. Well, first of all, we're not buddies, and second of all, you wait a minute, you asked me to allow you to speak, I allowed you to speak, let me finish my sentence, okay?
Well, then
Okay,
I have
so,
nothing more to say.
well, then don't say anything. I told Justin, the library director, I said, you come up with a good plan, I'll help you, I'll support it. You come up, and that's what he did. He came up with a valid plan to address the issues that you have, and we're all working towards the same thing. But this is a problem, not Ken, but the issue that we have to come up with this large amount of money. If you have a better idea for it, I'm all ears. Help us through it. This is what we're all about.
That's the whole point that I said.
Well, I think, just to interject a little bit, with your example, Ellie, I think what you were saying, if you had money left over, from the perspective of how Gene operates, I would assume that would go to free cash if it wasn't used. So, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, ma'am.
Yes.
So there's a lot of moving parts in this conversation, and if I break them into discrete pieces. First of all, I think it's worthy for everybody to remember the way we do things right now without any stabilization funds. If we frequently come in under budget, and we should, because we should have estimated and provided town meeting with enough cushions that we can complete the project that we asked to do without having to go back to them for more money and delaying the project. So we typically ask for a little bit more than our estimates and our quotes with the hope that we would have something left. Current practice with many of our projects is Jean will ask the department head to close out the project, and then she takes what's left in the balance for that project from the fund created by town meeting, and we will go back to town meeting in a subsequent meeting and say, there's a capital project, and we are going to fund it partially from all of the unused money from projects that have closed out.
Similar to what we did with the radio project.
It was either the radio or?
No, it was a radio.
It was radio.
I think it was the radio. So, yeah, there was probably 15 to 20 projects. Some of them were pennies, some of them were quite a bit of money. So this brings up a topic for conversation. Second point, second discrete point, which is it really kind of depends on how much you take out of stabilization, a reserve stabilization fund. So let's say that Ken has another truck coming up, it's another 750. Example only, illustrative purposes only. And we wait 5 years, and we put 100,000 every year into the stabilization fund for a vehicle purchase. And then you get to the end, you say, I'm going to use 500 from that fund to buy a $750,000 item. I guess it would come from the motion, and if it doesn't come from the motion, I guess it would be the town accountant's decision on the pecking order, but presumably you would use all 500 from the stabilization, 250 from whatever funding source, call it free cash, because that's the easiest to get your head around. And then if it closed out a balance, that balance would stay the way we do it now. If you had a $500,000 fire truck, and you had 750 in stabilization, and you took 500 out to buy a truck, and there was overage at the end, again, I think it would come down to the motion made at town meeting, and if it wasn't that, then Gene's predilection would probably be to say, this funding source was the stabilization fund. If it closes out with a balance, that money would go back into the stabilization fund from which it had been transferred. So it kind of depends on the total amount of money you decide to take out, town meeting decides to take out, versus the cost of the item. Third, a nuanced point. I think we have to talk apples to apples. It is true that the fire department's vehicles are very expensive compared to everybody else's, that's just a fact. But they still pale in comparison with the cost of building projects. So when we look forward to future building projects, even if they're in the millions, if you had a stabilization fund established to try to chip away at that, well, how would you do it? How would you use it? You might use it for appurtenances in the building that have a useful life that still make them capital spending and are necessary for the project to be successful, but which you wouldn't borrow for 30 years to fund. So I can imagine, let's use the schools because they're not here to defend themselves. If you took a 30-year note out for a school and say it's $100 million, and you had about 15 million of that were desks, chairs, heavy-duty items that are all capital, but they shouldn't be in a 30-year note. You could use your stabilization for the building to buy those things cash with a transfer, and then only borrow for the 30-year asset. That's a responsible way to do it.
Right.
So in the case of a library, you can imagine if you were going to build an addition or put, significant remodels on the inside, that might involve new shelving and a whole bunch of things that you might want to in the project, but you don't want to be part of the contract with the builder that you're going to go out and purchase separately. A stabilization fund would be very useful for something like that because you would be working towards the goal, and people wouldn't be asking, because they always ask when you're a building project, well, what are you going to buy with that money? And you say, well, we're just putting up the edifice, we're not going to worry about what we're putting inside because we've already saved for that. So those were just some points I teased out of the conversation to make it clearer and easier, is that at the end of the day, stabilization funds are a creature of town meeting, and town meeting will decide whether or not to take the money out for the purpose named, and the motion that's used to take the money out can probably go a long way to limiting its potential use, so long as it's lawful under the statutes.
What I like about the stabilization fund is that it actually earns interest on itself.
Yeah. So
right now, it's about, the library's getting involved in this,
Thank you, Matt.
1.44%. So, and interest rates are starting to go up. So I don't know, it's what it's going to be. It's not going to be 10% like it was in the 70s, but.
I hope not, because then my cost is going to be a lot higher.
But it's, that interest goes into the stabilization fund
Yep.
too, which is nice. If it goes back to the general fund, then I don't think they get much, do they? The general fund, do they make interest on that?
Well, that's a
Well, it
really
doesn't matter.
pithy question.
Yeah,
Yes, we have a balance that we carry, but it's in a no-risk arrangement, so to speak.
yeah, so it's like 0, 0, 0.
It has to be 100% liquid all the time, so.
Okay.
So I guess to justify in my reactions is initially, I have it in my head that I have this ladder truck that's $1 million. That's going to be a problem, even if we had 500,000 in there, it's still taking a significant amount away from our capital. Once we achieve that, we get the trucks on a 5-year rotation, which after this year, if this truck gets approved, it's a very achievable thing because we get 50% of the trucks have purchased. Once we get all the vehicles, it's easier to put your head around as to how much you got that's excess in the stabilization fund. Initially, I have it in my head that we still have, what are we looking at? Probably $1.7, $1.8 million worth of trucks that still need to replace after this one gets replaced. Between the ladder truck and
At the minimum.
and the fourth truck.
At the minimum.
Well, I'm not even considering the tanker truck, the brush truck. I'm just thinking a year 4 major.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why I'm always hesitant to try to earmark that until we get that problem solved.
Yeah.
So that's why you get a little defensive on it. So it's not a personal attack on anything other than that. It's just, I'm just trying to harness this energy to get this problem
Well,
solved. That's all.
what I'm like
Yep.
is making money on the money. And then making money on other capital extras, like, an overage
Yep.
going back in. And that's
Yep.
interesting that the way the original motion is made could be done in a way that it would go back into the stabilization fund. Another thing is, you had mentioned the other day about the springs and these big trucks, getting, if you trade them in or get somebody to buy at the junkyard or
Right.
whatever, that you can get big bucks for it. And that type of thing, it's coming from a capital item. So the trade-in could be considered perhaps going back into the stabilization fund. Again, I guess you'd have to do a town meeting article
Right.
for that type
Yep.
of stuff. But it's just being aware of what capital items, where they come and go and stuff like that, that this is a way to add more than the $100,000 a year to
Yep.
it. So that's what
Yep.
I'm thinking of.
Yep.
I'm, scraping together as much as I could. That's the way I
Right.
live, so.
Yep, yeah, and I get defensive on this idea because if we don't stay on track on the base idea of putting away $100,000 a year for 5 years to offset the cost of that truck, then we defeat the whole process if it gets, and that'll be up to the people that vote at town meeting, obviously, because we can't dictate that. But we need it's through education and persistence to make sure everybody understands what the intent was of this. And it just to solve this problem. He steals all our money every time he comes up in 5 years. So I'm trying to put some handcuffs on him so he doesn't get the majority of our money. We did an awesome job in our 5-year plan and in this current capital year to address a lot of issues. We're fortunate to be in the position we're in, and hopefully it carries through that 5 years. We don't know. But anyways, that's all I got to say on that. So if you're done, I'm going to go to Shirley.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you almost called her Ellie.
I almost did, but I caught myself
Conversation.
because she'll yell at me next, so I figured I might as well
No, I
have
don't
both the
yell
same name.
at anybody.
Yeah, she's much nicer than me.
Oh.
She's in the same boat as Ken.
Really?
Just
You
for the
got the
record,
paddle.
wait a minute, just for the record, we're not voting on this.
Yeah,
No motions,
I hear you.
no, on whether who's nicer.
Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Shirley.
I am for it. I have a history of planning ahead, trying to look ahead as much as possible. I was there when the first stabilization fund was voted on. And the reason was because every year at town meeting, it was always, well, who can get the most people there to support their project? That's not the way to run a town or even your own home. I do want to hear or make sure, and I'm sure this is going to happen, that Jean finds out all the legalities
Yeah,
of
she's
how we
working on
can do
that.
this. I think it's wise, and I'm for it.
I already know your answer, but if you have anything to add to it.
I just think it's good planning, like you said, and I want to thank you for actually coming up with the idea, bottom
Well, it
line.
was, Matt gets.
No, I
benefit-
have talked to Matt
benefit
before as well, and I know.
Yeah, but it's
long as we get it
it's been team
just a-
conversations trying to come up with it. Not to embarrass you or nothing, but if everybody paid attention to the last, when we went through this, once we started this conversation, we were getting into the 5-year plan, that is the most active I've seen Kent in the planning, and thinking broadly across the table to include everybody, the school, the highway, and different things like that. So you can, and the only reason I bring it up is you recognize, I've acknowledged this to him within this week. It takes a lot of pressure off him because he's trying to constantly figure out how he's going to support his department and get the equipment that he needs. So hopefully this is a good solution, but I don't know if you have anything else, Ken, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it just, it does take some pressure off. I'll be honest, there's times that I've come to meetings, and it always sounds bleak from the fire department standpoint, because our equipment costs so much, and I have discussed that with Matt before. And it's not just about the fire department, it's about the whole town, it's about all departments. But our department has to do with life safety and saving lives and protecting people, and I want the best for the town, and I don't want stuff that's breaking down in the middle of a fire, nor the same way John wouldn't want. When it's a fire, guess what? You want a fire truck there. When it's snowing out sideways, we want the highway out there. So I just think that, quite honestly, we're all pulling together in the same direction, and we're trying to do what's best for the town, and I think this committee's done some really good, solid work this year. That's all.
Yeah,
I'm for it.
You're for it. That's a short version of
That's,
you.
I gave you the short version.
I think it's a great idea. I'm absolutely for it as well.
May I make
Absolutely, you can
one
make
more
whatever you want.
comment?
Yeah.
I think, not only planning, well, my comment is going to refer again to planning. We have to be real. We've got more and more people coming into town, more and more developments. Yes, business development too, which is great. But let's be real. The more people, the more businesses, the more police,
Yeah,
fire, highway.
yeah, it's going to
So-
escalate the needs of the town.
We have to keep planning. Thank you.
And this is just a discussion today, so we're gonna get past town meeting because there's so much going on with the budget and everybody else is overwhelmed in their own worlds, whether it's finance or the administrator. After we get past town meeting, Jean will have a chance to probably catch her breath and get us more information. We're gonna have more meetings on this. This is just the starting of the conversation. She's got to find out when we could actually do it if we choose to do it. And it'll be a joint decision with everybody. So if nobody else has anything else on that, we can look at our grading in our 5-year plan. I'm going to ask Matt, let Matt know that. Thank you very much for joining us. Has anybody had a chance to look at the grading? Just excuse me for a minute.
This is what he gave us a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Kent, when we have a rainy spell like we're having now, how many days of dry weather does it take till the fire hazard gets high again?
Really doesn't take long at all if the winds kick up. If the winds kick up, things dry out quickly. You could have, today's a Class 1 day, which is very low fire danger. By Sunday, if the sun came out and the winds were 10, 15 miles an hour, you'd probably be back at a Class 3.
And humidity is a factor.
And your relative humidity, if your relative humidity is low, it goes up.
Right.
You know, it's very interesting just how much a little bit of shade keeps the moisture in that part of the, you know, that wherever the shadow is cast in the shade. I've done live burns down on the Cape with the district warden, and the fire behaves completely different just where that shade is.
So burn season ends May 1, right?
Yeah.
Will one of the factors be when people call you guys when the most recent rain was in terms of
No,
today or?
they'll continue to call us right up till May 1. And I
But
would
if it's a rainy
anticipate.
day, are you quicker to say, go ahead and burn than?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But I look
Yeah.
every day at the weather to see what the winds are going to be and what the forest fire warden for the district puts out a recommendation through DCR, and we decide based on that.
Okay.
If it gets to a Class 4, I won't let people burn.
Anybody have any comments on the grading?
Yeah, it looks good. This is what we've had for a week or two, right? Or
Yes,
a month?
yep,
yeah.
it's the same one, yeah.
You
All I
tidied it up a
did,
bit.
the only changes I made is I took, this is what we would use on our committee, this, the one that I gave us. Just the score points, I took off the priorities and the must-dos and should-dos and all that on the bottom. This way it makes it cleaner for us and it's easy to understand, and then I took the bullet points and put them as A, B, whatever. So that way, when we grade next time, like I did on the sample thing that I made up with the widget, you'll get your priority from the department, which we're going to educate them as to the priority means the individual priority, not the sequential priorities. So then you'll know what their priority is and what their estimated cost is, and then we put our notes and our rating on there. So on this one here, I said a replacement is needed to maintain the continual level of service to the residents of Douglas. But nothing other than, that was the first thought that came into my head. And then I gave it a 1B, that it's, looking at our sheet, even though it's scored a 1, it's a desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategies due to its size, scope, or lack of other urgent factors as noted that is not available at the time of ranking. Which makes it difficult for us when we do it on a grading point portion, because like with the high, I'm going to use how I personally graded the last ones that we just went through. I looked at the highway bond, and I feel it's pretty obvious that we need to address that. I had scored it a 4 because I thought it was a high priority. Then I read through this again, and I changed it to a 1. And I changed it to a 1 because of the funding, solely for the funding. So on a score sheet, it just dropped down, but it's actually important. So I don't know if we want to move that particular portion to a different column, leave it there, or come up with some sort of idea how we go about that. Because if we put it in column 4, it needs special funding. We can't take it out of free capital, free cash. So.
Well, I like how you tidied it up, Mike.
Well, just because I got confused last year, Ben got confused with it this year, so I'm like, all right, so why was I confused? And then then I'm talking to Ben and realized we were both on the same exact page with it. So I'm like, all right, that priority thing was screwing me all up on the top because priority one and score 4 points. It's like, take it off there and get it to points because that's what we go by as a committee.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, madam?
That's why back a few years, John, I think it was John, was getting discouraged, you know. He put it out there, and we needed a plan if it was going to go forward that year. But knowing we couldn't afford it, he was ready to take it off the list. And I
Right.
said, but if you do that, it's gone. I mean, sure, you could come back next year and say, look, I really need this building, but there again, there's no planning.
Right.
So we need to have it so that it's
Yep.
the fire station, the whole safety complex, or
Yep,
the school, or the library.
Even the
We need
library.
to
The library is
plan.
just as important because of the accessibility of that building, and that's why I had met with Justin a few times and try to help him through that process,
Yeah.
because we need to make it accessible. I think he told me that there was a child born that got all the way to adulthood
Yeah.
and never stepped foot in there because it's not accessible, and we shouldn't have that situation. And the library's doing their part to try to help and doing their fundraising and stuff like that, so hopefully pretty soon we see something with that materializes.
But I think if there's a plan, they could reach their goals sooner if
A
the
plan
town-
in which way, you mean? A building plan, you mean?
Yeah, something that,
Yeah, so on
Will
the,
help.
so the library has some sketches and some basic ideas, which which we're all aware about, but that's a starting point, all right? So they identified the needs and somewhat defined what their scope needs to be, and we just did the same thing with the other three departments, police, fire, and highway. So we're moving forward in that, and we're taking I'm trying to help take a different approach to it and get the information that we need, so then when somebody comes forward to do the design or the plans or whatever, we can show them what we want versus taking what they're going to give us, because it doesn't always work what they're going to give us.
absolutely.
But anyways, getting back to the scoring sheet, do we want to leave it all like this? I did ask Matt about, on score points, B, satisfy a judgment in court or rectify a notice of violation or similar liability. I asked him, I said, should that be on our capital list? Would that be an emergency type thing that you would have to get some funding somewhere? And he feels that it should still stay on there, and he had a reason why, but it was lawyer stuff, so I didn't comprehend half of it.
I like it there, quite honestly. I actually like the
Yeah.
must do, should do, could do type. I like that too.
Not for us.
Yeah. It just helps me stay focused on, priority ones and twos.
But, yeah, so, and I just tell you what my thought was. Ellie did the same thing, as when she looked at it, she looked at the must-dos and stuff on the top, and then you went up to the other part,
Oh, I
didn't
don't
you?
look at anything.
Oh, you didn't look at that?
I
Okay.
just look at my gut and.
No, I didn't know if you had looked at that must-do stuff on the bottom, so. So you didn't use any of this description?
I never
Yeah,
did,
no, I'm
so.
just, yep, no, that's fine. Everybody has their different tactic, and that's what this is all about, so we can
Right.
get some sort of understanding, so after we're gone, somebody else is going to be here, trying to get something in place so it's easily understood. Yes.
I depend on the town administrator's view of the whole town, much better than mine, certainly.
Yep. Yeah, he's in it every day. so.
And, hopefully not skewing it at all for, that he knows what the fire department and the highway and the police, everybody
Yeah.
else needs and stuff like that. And he can see where he can see things clearer than I certainly can see.
Right.
Because I don't do it every day. But, so I would somehow build, although it's helpful to have him at these meetings and stuff like that, but somehow have him build his priorities, and that would be through the selectmen almost, of what capitals should come forward this year or that year, so. I think his role.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of the different things, because it's, does he get that involved in, and it's easy because we have a department head here now, does he get that involved into your capital requests to tell you whether you should be doing that this year or that year, or is that, no, that's fine?
Nope, it's all basically
That's
the
on you.
department.
So, I've had conversations with him because of the role that I'm in, because I need to have my head around so I can help us as a committee to answer some of the questions. But he takes a pretty neutral approach to all the departments. I don't see him gravitating, when I'm having the direct conversations with him, gravitating towards one over the other. And he'll point out that where a deficiency is in a particular department, and something that may need to be addressed. And it's like we have this situation with the 2 plow trucks that we just went through, which neither one of them are on the list. That's fine, they're on our 5-year plan. But we can only fit 1 truck. So that's information that he also shares, as well as the department head, so.
Well, I appreciated the way he stepped in and talked about the roads and gave us some advice on that. We could have chosen to take that advice or not take it. We took the advice, but I appreciated, I'm not a roads guy, so
Right.
I appreciated him weighing in on that.
And that's 30% of our capital budget on the roads, but you live it up on your street. It's a mess going up that way on all those roads that are going up to the, but we
Doesn't
have to.
bother me.
I know, but we have to address it at some point.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So it's good for him to come into that, so he's not gravitating towards, all right, we got to get Ken in his fire trucks all the time. He's looking at where the needs are. So anyways. Yes, Shirley?
How did you know?
I felt those little eyes burning a hole in my forehead.
I guess my thoughts may be tainted because, and Ellie, you've been around for a while, but I've been involved in this community for a number of years in many different roles, and have a pretty good recall. But I also, so I count on that, but I also count on the information that I get from the department heads. And if something really doesn't jive with me, I will ask to go and see.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's important for us on this
It's
committee, that if you have a question, you should go and view it.
So that's what I count on, but I like the guidance
Yeah,
of what's here.
yeah. If we're getting to our scoring thing, the way we used to get our forms from the department.
We've changed, yeah.
That's changed a little bit, but that information was useful for us. It was useful to me anyways. Just a little narrative about what they're asking for and the values and stuff like that, some of the history. Instead of just having an item and a value, it's like, okay, so what is it about? It was really helpful with that new food director that we have at the school. She came in, she presented herself properly, she gave us good information so we could put our head around it. Before, we'd be like, all right, we need an oven. Okay. Yeah, we need a little more information than that.
The other thing, maybe, I think they had it on their sheets, information that they presented, but how long has it been on this list?
Never.
What, the kettles?
No, not just the kettle,
It used to be on the old one, it used to
How-
be, how
yeah.
many times?
Oh, how long is, oh, all right.
And if it's still on or if it's off, what
Right.
happened?
Right. Yeah, I would like to see that remain, quite honestly, because it gives you
Yeah.
more of a history.
Yes.
Because some people here didn't know that engine one been on for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
No, but I liked that, and I thought it was good information.
Even if it's not on a actual list, on that request, and let's use your engine for argument's sake. Engine one, this has been a department request since 2016 for arguments, just for a
Fine.
number. And that would be helpful for us. The accessibility of the library has been a request since 2018. The highway,
20.
no, I'm just,
No, we were promised almost, and, after the fire station was built, your next in line library.
Yeah.
And that was over 20 years ago.
But I also remember it getting voted down at a town
Oh,
meeting.
that was after, I think.
That was like 2002 or 3.
Yeah, it was voted down because it was a Cadillac, and the town didn't want a Cadillac. They
That's not
wanted
the only reason, Ellie.
all right, let's not get
But
off
we're not
track. I
going
don't
to
want
get
to,
into that.
Okay.
I don't want to be arguing about it.
No. I agree.
I've already.
No, but you're right, it's been
Ellie
on
already
for many, many,
traumatized
many,
each other,
many
so I don't want to
years.
finish the meeting that way.
But not specifically.
Correct.
But anyway, so everybody is comfortable with the format of they don't want to, and nobody wants to move anything around, you like the way it is? Yeah,
You
Brandon,
talk
I'll
about
get
the
to you in a
grading
second.
sheet?
Yes.
Yeah, I like it, yeah.
Yeah. Brandon?
Well, as you did, I voted the highway garage as a 1 point.
Yeah.
I would have put it as a 4 if you change the wording of this, keep this the way it is, 1B.
Referring to section B.
Yeah, 1B, if you keep that in 1 and just change the urgent factor to make it a 4.1, it would have scored a 4 for me. So instead of lack of urgent factors, it would be an urgent factor to change or to upgrade the highway department, or to,
That's why I look at the must,
right.
because it tends to direct me as to the seriousness.
Yeah, I would, actually, if you, and I agree with Brandon, because I had trouble with that too. If you go right to funding strategy and you draw a line between that due to its size, and you take everything after that line off, due to its size, all that, just take it all off. A desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategy, done. If you could put, then you could change that to put it into column, the first column, which is 4 points, but then it would be E in the first column.
Right. That was of an urgent nature to be a 4. So if it was a desirable project that required, extensive debt planning, but it wasn't of an urgent nature, then it would stay in 1B. But if it's of an urgent nature, like the highway is, it would be a 4E.
Right, so
That would be my thought on it.
Oh, okay. And it wouldn't, by identifying it as another funding source, it doesn't offset something else that already scored higher. You know what I mean? So it could still stay on the capital, but it's going to, whether it's debt exclusion or whatever it is, however they come up with the funding.
How is that highway barn, I'm thinking it's like GBI's big tin sheds there, that's what it would be. Are those that expensive?
Yeah, I don't know if they I don't know if it'll eventually end up as a metal building. You're talking about his storage buildings that he has up, that's
Those are
just
wood.
4 walls with trusses on top, so it could essentially be wide open. I don't know what's in there, but it could essentially be a wide open building. So whether they do a pole building, a metal building,
So where did the money come? Was it over 2 million or to be determined? That was.
yeah, we don't know what the value is of it yet. If you built a brand-new facility, I can guarantee you, without knowing anything at all about it, you'll be over 2 million.
But not a metal shed. for storage of these large trucks.
So there's different considerations when you build a building like that. Does he need cold storage or does he need heat? That's all in the studies that they did, but that's what I had asked for, to put into their description. You need storage. Does it need to be climate controlled? And you have just dry storage, as you're suggesting, as like in a metal building or a barn or whatever. Do we just need it out of the elements, or do we need it in a heated space? So depending on what the equipment is, like with the tanker trucks, you would definitely have to have that in a climate-controlled area, otherwise the tanks would freeze in the wintertime. So highway, I don't think they have anything that would actually freeze, but I don't know what their needs are. They're also, there was discussion about mechanic bay in one of the 3 facilities, whether it's used by all 3 departments or for one. We spend a lot of money sending stuff out to be repaired. Does it make, and this is only questions, does it make more sense to hire in a mechanic to have them on and we have our own thing? Whether it's front-end alignments on the cruisers because of the roads are blowing out the front ends and we're going through a ton of tires, or fixing a leaf spring on a fire truck. Well, these are all just discussions and questions that were asked. Nothing has been determined. It's just trying to put as much out, trying to put as much out there as possible, so we're thinking of everything, so we don't make basic mistakes. We're always going to make a mistake because we can't cover everything, but we try our best to get everything out there. So Brandon's suggestion was to take, which part of B do you want to take?
I mean, if you just leave the wording as it is, it would stay as a 1B. And then I would just propose creating a 4E and changing the word to being, a desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategy due to its size or scope and has an urgent nature or an urgent factor associated with it, such as like the highway department is an urgent need, I believe. But it does require, a funding strategy as well, but it is urgent.
Well, so if it was a 4, then you wouldn't even need to have desirable project on there, because if it's graded as
It
a
is,
4, then it's
right.
definitely a desirable project. So,
Yeah.
so we could probably, maybe, and it's only a suggestion, add E to it and just,
Instead of desirable project, an urgent project?
well,
requiring
urgent
debt planning?
factors. No. Yeah, so, you're good.
Are we going to leave on the must do, should do, could do, and nice do? Because that's where,
We can leave that on there. I had cleaned it up and taken it off because first, the priority thing confused me and
Right.
Ben, and then I took that off because I felt it as a distraction.
well, my.
But it's
here's-
important to the department heads.
Right. But, I mean, so as far as, buildings, and I did the priority 4 because, yeah, it's desirable and so forth, but it really, the nice do, no, it's not nice do, it should do it, at least should do. It's something we should.
Right, and that's why I took that off the bottom, because
Yeah.
you see what just happened to your train of thought, is you
Yeah.
went down to the bottom, nice do, when no, it's not nice do, it should do.
Should
So
do.
you start disregarding the wording of the category, so that's why I took that off the very
Yeah,
bottom.
I agree.
That'll be good for the department heads. I want to send them, once we have this part of it figured out for our grading, they'll end up with one that doesn't say score points on the top, it'll have priorities on the top, and they'll have their must do, should do, and nice to do, and all that other stuff on the bottom.
Yeah. I agree.
That was my thought on it, so. So if we're going to change something over to the,
That's just a
no,
suggestion.
and we don't, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I need your help to figure out how I'm going to word that, because I can't. Because this is planning or other funding strategy due to its size, scope, or lack of other urgent factors. So it's all part of things. So if you wanted to call it out because it was urgent need, then you could create E and put urgent need.
Right, that requires.
It's just that simple, just urgent need.
Yeah.
And then,
Is there any place that it says it's needed to provide the functionality of that department to, something like that in there, that the department really needs it to function?
okay, so under 4, on C, alleviates and I don't even know why it says and, but it should say,
Take out the, it's
take and out of there.
just and.
Yeah, alleviates emergency service disruptions or deficiency.
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just, you need it to make the department function.
Yeah, not having it disrupts the operation.
Right.
Right, yeah, so that should alleviate emergency service disruption or deficiency.
Yep.
So we'll take that word "and" out of there.
Yeah.
It says alleviates and emergency, I don't know why it said that, but we'll take that out of there. And do we want to add E in that column for urgent need?
Yeah, I would.
That could cover a lot of things. How do you feel on that, Dick?
Yeah, I've just been reading over this and thinking of Brandon's idea there, that if you had the urgent project that requires debt planning, that's the
Right.
key, right?
Exactly, yeah,
As opposed to no debt planning.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay,
That's a good addition.
so we would put urgent need that requires debt planning?
So
Or funding plan, funding strategy. How about that?
are you
I'd defer to
talking,
Brandon on that one.
I'm sorry, are you talking about moving that over to 4 points? Score,
Well, you could either leave that there in there as a desirable project. You could leave that in there if you wanted. What I did on mine is right under funding strategy, I have a line and then I X'd out what's underneath that because it gets into urgent and other factors and all, and size and scope. I just left it as a desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategy, and kept it that simple under line 1. And then if it's something that's urgent, that needs to be done, and it needs a funding strategy or debt planning or whatever, we put that, as Brandon suggested, put that in column 1 under E, and it could be as simple as urgent need that requires debt planning or other funding strategy.
I think that hits it.
How do you feel on that,
So
Ellie?
that's E
Right.
under
Yeah,
that.
yep. Would you like that? You agree with that? Yep. Shirley?
but what you're going to get then is it scores 4 points.
It's an urgent need that needs other funding strategy. Because, and what we're saying is, we need to get it done, but, all right, let me put it.
No.
No,
I'm good.
hear me out for 1 minute, don't pull an Ellie on me.
No, I won't.
So.
No,
No, hear me out for a second.
Sure,
It's
go
just-
ahead.
I'm just teasing you, Ellie. We have $1.1 million.
Yeah.
We have an urgent need, it's $2 million.
Yeah.
We need a funding strategy. So that's the logic behind that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So we're moving from,
You're going to leave, so what again, and if anybody disagrees, that's fine. Under funding strategy and on 1B, the last column on the B,
yeah,
right there, I put a line right under funding strategy, and I X'd out everything past that. desirable project requiring debt planning or other funding strategy, period. That's it. That's all that's in that under B. Then in the first column's 4 points, we create an E,
Yeah.
and we're going to put urgent need requiring debt planning or other funding strategy.
Okay.
Is that what you intended?
Exactly where I was going
Yeah.
with this. I felt bad giving John a 1
Yeah.
when he's living in a trailer that we're paying money for every month. It's an urgent need in
Yeah.
my mind, and it should have been a 4,
Sure.
but it requires debt planning and other funding strategy, so it had to go on to a 1.
So Mike, would you
Technically.
repeat E again? Urgent need?
All right, urgent need requiring debt plan, so you're going to put urgent need, and then you're going to just use that wording from from the first thing. Urgent need requiring debt planning or other funding strategy, period.
Yeah, thank you.
Shirley, would that be in the RISV report?
Probably. That's a good point. Ken.
That was a good pickup on
That
that.
out.
one. Thanks.
Dust it off.
So does that B go away? Why did we say it under 1A and then crossed out the bottom of
Yeah,
it?
so I did it like this, so it's a desirable project that just requires debt planning. It's the same wording, but it's desirable. This becomes an urgent
I
need.
used to call it this.
So that's the only difference between the two, and then we just get
Eating
rid of all
schedules
this.
a lot.
bullshit.
So usually I don't eat until noon or 1, but now I'm like starving.
Other than that, I think I feel that we probably could leave that alone, see how it goes through the next process, and see if we want to tweak it again. Good on that?
I am.
Ally?
Yeah, what if it scores 4 points and does it have to do A, B, C, D, and E on it, or
Nope, so,
does that
go-
raise
go-
the points, or?
no, it doesn't raise the points. So then this will just help us on our internal discussions on the committee, that I put the reason why I scored it a 1B.
Yeah.
So then we can look at that, and so we're not, and it helps if we get, this is a 4 and this is a 4, but this requires funding, we can still do this one, and we have to talk about how we're going to strategize for this one. So that was the logic behind that.
Just one question,
Yes.
Mike. So under score 1 point, what are you leaving under there? Both of those?
Yep, we're leaving those both on.
Okay,
Yep, no, I'm just going to
Yep.
show you, just so you see what I did. Funding strategy, I put a line and X this out.
Okay.
We leave the top part of it.
yep, thank you.
Because then it's still a desirable
I just want-
project, but it requires debt planning or other funding strategy.
Right, I just want to make sure we're all on the same.
Yep. Everybody else got that? Yep. All right, so if we're through that, Lisa and Jean did our capital plan for fiscal '23. And they also put down our list that we had made, so I just asked her to, this is off the actual sample warrant. So that way, everybody can see and make sure that we all agree to everything. I checked it all to make sure it was consistent with what we talked about, but everybody can look at it. And if they have any questions or whatever, we need to.
I think it's really helpful to have it in nice, concise form like this.
No, absolutely. It is. This is good because now, next year's process, we have something that's in front of us that we can to some, I don't remember whose comment it was, or whether it was Ken or Ellie's. If it's not on that, I mean, it could have been yours too, Shirley. If it doesn't maintain on the list, why did it come off?
That's why,
What was the factor that made it come off? So then, that way, when we're questioned, we can answer.
right, that's why I made a
Somebody
copy out
gave
of
it.
my last
Ben
town
ga-
book.
Ben gave a new ladder to the fire department, so then we didn't have to buy him one, so.
Thanks, Dave.
I tried to get him to buy me a coffee the other day, when, so.
Okay, that's how that one went. Sure, we'll go with that.
No, actually, he did agree to buy it. Because I teased him, I walked in the family convenience center and said, everything's on Ben today. He said, sure, I'll buy.
You did.
Okay, so any questions on our capital? Did everything look consistent with what we talked about?
Yeah, it looks great.
Ellie?
Yeah, I think I asked why the post office touring was 90,000, and then there was a high school one.
Oh, for 36,000, why there was a difference? The access road behind the school, I would think that the scope was much less than what the parking lot would be, because you also, there's a lot of factors. You have the disruption of traffic, so you have to have personnel there to manage that. And you also have to do all your line painting and curbs and everything else that's associated with it on the parking lot. And you have the parking lot when you first drive in, you have what's behind it, you have that little wing that goes off to the right, and then you also have an area across Gleason Court. That's all on there. So it's a lot more involved than just a little parking area where you drive up and park your vehicle. Does that help you?
Yeah, I just, that's one thing I was.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to,
I'm still not letting it go to rest, but.
no, that's fine, yep. Yes,
One thing, Mike, so for 2024, again, we know, transfer, we're hoping, to stabilization fund. But by then, and what that intends, that's the second, or however we want to word it, stabilization.
it'll be
I don't want people to get the wrong
No,
impression.
it's not going to be, so when we put this is just so we have a capital plan, so if we make it to the point where we go to the town meeting with this stabilization fund, it's going to be a special capital stabilization fund for the purchase of fire apparatus.
No, just, the-
Whatever,
I know.
it'll have some sort of title. What's that?
just the beginning part, a specialized capital stabilization fund, or just a capital stabilization fund.
Okay.
I just don't want to limit it to fire trucks.
Okay, so we'll get to that point. I'm not even going to hash that out now, but I just, allow me just to say it one more time. The whole idea behind this is to eliminate the every 5 or whatever years of a purchase of a truck. These trucks are typically in service for 15 to 20 years. If we go to the outer limits of it at 20 years and we put them on a 5-year rotation, you have 4 trucks in there now. He has a 99, a 2001, he has a 2005, which is the ladder truck, and he has a 2017, which we already purchased. So now 17, 5 years later is 22. So if we get the next truck, those 2 are already in the rotation. We achieve the other rotation on the other trucks. Every 5 years, there's going to be a truck that comes up to the 20-year point. And that's what because this is a big problem for us on capital. This is what motivated me to do it, nothing other than that. Because on capital, you can't take that big of a hit. There was a lot of things we could have got done with $750,000 this year on capital that we pushed off, whether it was a plow truck or whether it was a sidewalk somewhere, whatever it was. We had to push it off because this is the need that we have. So that's the only reason I suggested the way I suggested with the wording of it, and I don't even know what the wording is going to be. This is something that we, as a group, are going to work through. If you have it too general,
I agree.
the people aren't going to understand what you're thinking of, and it's going to be an arm wrestling match each and every time you go to do that. And if you disrupt, if we put $100,000 in to the budget and say hypothetically we get 3 years into it, or 4 years into it, and we need this new chair, and we buy this new chair for $300,000, we just defeated the entire idea of what we're trying to accomplish of solving this long-term problem. That's just my thought process on it. So I don't want to argue about it or anything, and I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just explaining why I even thought of this way.
Well, you know the way I think.
No, I know that. I get that.
So I can try to help to put that in perspective. So before we got the ladder, let's take the ladder out of it. We got a truck in 2001, which was the tanker. If you don't even think about the ladder, it was 2017, we got the next truck. That's 16 years instead of that need got ignored. The only reason we got the truck in 2005 is because we got a grant for it. And even though we got a grant for it, there was still 12 years that elapsed before we got another one. And so that's how you get behind, and that's why I agree with you that if you put it for fire, you're trying to maintain that every 5 years you're upgrading your equipment so that it's still safe. That's all.
It's just an individual one, so I'll get a copy of that and I'll email it to you, and it'll help you. This is from the Department of Revenue. This is something that this was voted in on November 7th, 2016, and they specifically show it, the example, a fire truck and I think a school or something like that. And it can always be changed. It takes 2/3 votes. It can always be redesignated for something. The name of it can be changed. It can be decreased, increased, whatever, but it takes 2/3 votes to do it, just like we do with our stabilization fund now. So there's protections in place there. So regardless of who has passion for whatever, this is the whole point. It's going to take the majority of the town in order to do what we need to do. I just feel that it's a good plan for the town to try to help, and no puns intended, stabilize what we're doing. Because he just said that he got a truck in 2001, he got a grant for one in 2005, then we went 2017. So it's anywhere from 20 to 12 years in between. What, okay, 12 to 20, yeah, no big deal. What's the reality of it? Now we have a 1999, a 2001, and a 2005 that are all coming up, and we can't, that represents about $2.6 million. That's a debt exclusion, which takes away from whether it's, in no direction there. Takes away from the accessibility of the library, it takes away from the highway bond, takes away from the police department, takes away from a water improvement project, takes away from road improvement. That's all that happens, is we can't just do, all right, we'll do a debt exclusion. That's not the answer, because that prevents us from something else that we may need to do. The less we borrow or fund some other way, is just benefits the town. If we come up with a strategy that we can actually, I've heard the rainy day fund and all this other stuff, but if we fund it in a different way that takes the pressure off us as a town, that we're actually, we know it's coming, so why, we can't ignore it. You know you need a new roof on your house, you don't wait 20 years to figure out how you're gonna pay for it, you start, okay, that roof's coming up, I better start putting some money aside. It's the same strategy. It's the same exact thing. Your car's, all right, my car's 5 years old, I'm gonna have to buy one in 3 or 4 years. You don't wait 3 or 4 years and then figure out where you're gonna come up with the money. You try to put something aside for it. In hopes. Not everybody does, I don't. But that's the strategy.
And I mean,
So.
and we have taken money, and I can't remember exactly what for, out of our present stabilization fund, and the townspeople did agree to take it out,
Yeah,
and I can't remember what,
Yeah, what?
but,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was put back.
right. Yeah, the main stabilization fund, in my mind, is a savings account for a absolute emergency to bail us out.
Yes.
That, in my mind, that's what it is.
Me
So
too.
if you ask me at a town meeting to take money out of there, my instant reaction is no. Because that's a savings.
I think
You
we had to do
really
that for an
justify it.
ambulance once.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I know Chief Foley asked for $150,000 for his radios at one point. That's 10 years ago now.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the challenges when, if we do set up our new stabilization fund, is wording it in such a way that it gives you enough flexibility to do maybe a fire truck, maybe a highway truck, maybe,
I would.
Something like that.
I wouldn't.
but not
any-
specifically enough that you can't do something else.
Anything low like that, like a fire truck or
The highway.
things that come
A highway
before us, things that come in, I can use the ambulance because it's already been addressed and it comes out of receipts, so there's some sort of reserve that's put in to help offset that cost. But I'll use that for an example. If a highway plow comes in at 215 or an ambulance comes in at 300, that doesn't psychologically trash us at this committee. We're like, all right, we can fund, let me use the chapter 90, 360,000. We all in unison know that we need to fix the roads and address them. And it really didn't destroy our budget. When you double that number, that really affects us hard. If it's too generalized, and outside of this committee, it's been said to me that maybe we should, if it's over $500,000, such as a grader or a loader or something like that, you buy anything other than that apparatus until we come up with a better solution, you just defeated the whole point of what we're trying to do. So it's a good idea. You can have multiple ones. If it would be a good article for you to read, that law that they passed. You don't have, it's not only, you can only have two, you could have as many as you want on these stabilization funds if that's what the people choose to do. You just have to have a good reason. Now, sitting on zoning, and I'm going to use this for an example, a zoning law comes before us, and you want relief from that zoning. I need to try to understand what the intent of that law was. So if we have a stabilization fund that's too broad, the people past us don't know what the intent of that stabilization fund was, and it defeats the whole object of solving the problem, so.
And as years go by, people forget why it was originally set up.
Yeah,
And there's new people.
And I've had this conversation with Jean, because she was a little resistant on it at first, because we already have a stabilization fund, what do we need another one for? And she knows that these things exist. I said it's important to have, and it's also important to continue the education of why it's there. How much is in it? Shirley asks me all the time, what do we have left in this one? And how do we have, okay, I'll get it for you.
Well, I have the whole thing out here, you know,
Right.
your stabilization fund
Yep.
and the trust funds that are.
Right.
You know, so I know what is, I asked the question last time, what was in the Moses Wallace device, so I know exactly how much.
How much is in that? Because we didn't get that yet.
Oh, okay. It's not much. They have.
That's right.
Let's see. Their market value is $37,732.60. They have in earnings, so that's, you could only take the earnings, not the.
Right.
$8,984.44. So that's as of the end of February.
Right.
Mike, you think we could get some stabilization fund wording from other towns that are doing this? Have
Yeah, so I know that,
Working on it?
so when I did it, I did a quick search, I didn't spend a lot of time on it. Drake had, in June 30th, 2020, did one for something to do with school walls and stuff, so they had some wording, they had the motion that was in there and stuff like that to create this. And that's what, after we get past, because you're up to your neck in budget stuff too, so I think we get past the town meeting, then we start talking about this and compiling all our thoughts and whatever we can find on it. I think we'll come up with a good way to do it, however the wording works. I think it's very important that whatever our intent is, gets projected out to the people and constantly reminded as to what it is. And I would like to see at each town meeting, special and annual, that, yep, our special stabilization account has X into it. And so then is a constant reminder of what's going on.
Agree.
Because then everybody past us, because there's going to be people replacing us, everybody past us will understand what our thoughts are. This I don't see this problem going away in a long time. If I thought that we could spend $2 million and get rid of him, no offense,
I'll be back in
Ken,
5 years,
but
even if you do that.
If we could do that, I would be on that bandwagon, but I don't see. I
Absolutely.
don't see any long-term solution to it other than something similar to this. So it's just something we really need to
It's just
look
uniqueness.
at and come up with a business, it's a business plan. It's
It's-
just coming up with a business plan to make the town work.
It's the uniqueness of the cost of fire apparatus. It's, you could buy 3 highway trucks for 1 fire engine. And that's why, you know, I think this is a good idea, because we don't have a problem buying, quite
Yep.
honestly, we don't have a problem buying highway trucks. We'll probably get one next
Yep.
year. But
And nothing against your stuff.
No.
But there is zero value to the average person until they need it.
that's it.
When they need it, there's nothing more important in the world to
That's
them. And hopefully, we never, any of us need it.
And so I would equate it with an insurance policy, quite honestly.
And again, here we are, we know we've got a safety complex that's got to be done.
Well, we have 3, and this is the 3rd time I've heard complex. We have 3 descriptions of the needs of 3 different departments. Whether that's 1 building, 2 buildings, or 3 buildings, we have no idea what that is, whatever it comes out to be. I don't want people to misunderstand that we're designing a big, huge complex,
That's right.
because
Sorry.
we could essentially renovate the highway bond and they stay there, and then they're not part of the police and fire or any of the other ones in combination.
But-
So,
Very complex problem.
very
Right.
complex problem. But I don't want anybody to misunderstand that
I'm sorry.
we're trying to
I agree.
build and I almost said the T word, someone's tower. I just,
But it's not just the safety issues of 3 buildings. It's other buildings.
right,
More development,
yep.
2 kids at least to every house. Here we are again.
Yep, yep. It's just a,
At this point, I'd just like to say that
yes,
I've lived here since 1975, but we've never gone over the population of 10,000. And right now, I guess we're at about 9.
9,200, I think.
We were at 8 for many, many, many
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
Or 8 plus, you know, so. And the town that I used to work in, they had the same population as we did, so, you know, and that's why I know, and that so, you know, yeah, we're growing, but it's not, you know, out of sight growing that we're,
It actually is.
Okay, so,
It actually is.
so how many?
Very soon.
all right, so
Very soon, okay.
the current developments that are going through planning board right now, you're looking at 300 houses. in total of what, between North Brown, Sleepy Hollow, up at Pam Carter's, Carter's land,
Caswell
not Pam's,
Court.
but Caswell Court, is that what it's called?
I believe.
Then you have up off Duval, you have another 31 houses up there, is that right?
And who knows-
All in, I asked Ken, the building inspector, the other day, I said, what's this add up to? He says, currently, you're at about 300 houses. So one kid a house is 300 kids. If you is sitting through the finance committee, I think it's $14,000 at Blackstone Valley for a kid that goes through there.
Something like that, yeah.
We're not going to get $14,000 out of taxes out of that house, so we're already upside down when we start. So it's not a good outlook. Fortunately, we have the commercial development that's coming into town, and hopefully that helps us and we can live through it.
But just one of those buildings is going to add 500 people to the town
So
24/7.
when the,
Either commuting through or building here.
what's her title there?
Assessor?
Baker's assistant there.
Oh, Lieutenant Governor?
Lieutenant Governor,
Polito.
sorry, I just lost it.
Polito.
Lieutenant Governor Polito's came in and gave us awarded us that grant, or handed it over to us, for the Mass Works. That project down there is projected to add 800 full-time jobs. Well, if we get 20% of them, that's 160 people. Yes, Sally?
I just wanted to ask Kent a question. Do you have regional meetings a lot with other fire departments, and do you all look at, well, gee, there's only X amount of fire ones around, or, just, do you look at a strategy for, beyond just what you have? I can understand basing your need on what you have now, but is it also in the bigger realm of mutual aid, what
Yeah,
that way?
the District 7 Fire Chiefs Association, we meet monthly, and we go over the problems in the district, the training requirements and things like that. We've got some mutual aid pieces that the chiefs actually funded. For instance, communications vehicles. So you can bring in, we had the fire up here, they brought a communications vehicle right here. And so they were able to band all the radio frequencies together. So that's one example.
Burnett Mills, didn't you have a multi?
Yeah, but, yeah, that was a,
Yeah, no, I'm just,
actually, we had a fire in 2015, it was a mill in Webster.
Yeah.
We all have run cards so that we automatically, if we go to a second, third, fourth alarm, that just means you need more manpower, you need more engine, you need more ladders, things like that. So we have it built into our run cards. Brandon knows because he has to call, like if I say, hey, Brandon, I need a third alarm, he knows he finishes the second alarm run cards, then he starts calling the third alarms. And that's all mutual aid that's built into the system. And we also have strike team mutual aid, so if we have an MCI, a mass casualty incident, we can forecast what we need for ambulances, what we need for fire responses from the surrounding towns. And I'll be a perfect example, we had the tornado that came through. I took an ambulance task force to Brimfield. And so we're very connected, and the state goes even a step further with task forces. So that's how, the Lawrence fires, there was a lot of mutual aid that went into the gas fires, and some of it came from this area, and a lot of it came from New Hampshire. But yeah, we're all interconnected and very much working together.
And isn't it, even when, people are called in that area, some of you are backup for,
Correct.
yeah, the other communities that have sent aid?
Like, for instance, Webster, we're on the second alarm run card to the scene of a fire. But if they get a call and they feel it's a first alarm, they'll pull an engine from us to cover their station and answer the other calls that they have, and vice versa. We do the same thing.
all right, so if we don't have anything else, and very good discussions, I think we have accomplished a lot. We probably won't meet again until after the town meeting to get everything to settle down, and then we'll start talking about this special capital fund. And this is all done. I'll have Lisa type this up and just send it around to everybody, so that way everybody gets a copy of it. But other than that, if anybody else has anything else, we can talk about it. If not, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. I beat you to
A
it.
motion made by Shirley, seconded by a duet of Ellie and Mr. Vanderberg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.